So now hopefully we have the recording running. And first of all, welcome everyone to the product management session for this Sprint 19 reporting workshop. It is a pleasure and a privilege to have you join. I want to thank you already now. Some of you have been engaged during the sprint already in some of the activities. And I want to also welcome those of you who are new to this community to this session. So I will share my screen. And let's see, this is the one I would want. And just let me know if you see a product management community session slide.
Yes, working well.
Excellent, excellent. So what will happen now when I share screen is that I can unfortunately not see the list of participants. But if you want to ask a question or whatever you would want to say, just jump in. So don't be hesitant. We are a small group, so it will be perfectly fine. The idea was that we would also have an external speaker today, but because of some unfortunate happenings, we had a very late decline. But I have a few things that I would want to share with you. First of all, of course, we're going to do a round of introductions. Then I would want to share what has been an incredibly, I think, successful sprint in the sense that the product management community has really taken off in terms of both activities as well as in people joining. Then I have 3 key trends in a presentation that I would want to share with you to also get your feedback on. And then in the very end, I would like us to have an open discussion where you also share some of your feedback or some of your input on what you consider the key challenges and the most important topics going forward. And as we were reminded already in the beginning, please share if you have a selfie, and if you don't have one, please take one and share it with us so that we have some nice documentation from today. And you can send it either to me or to Malin or to Jan even. So just share the selfie with us. So once again, most welcome. And Ann-Katrin, since I saw your name and I know you are here, would you mind if you look at the participant list, would you mind reading the names in the order as they appear so that people can introduce themselves? Could I ask you for that?
Yes, you can. I'm actually the first one on my list.
Good.
So I can start by introducing myself.
Please.
I'm Anna Windfeldt. I am coming from Grundfos. I work today as the head of our electronics development. And we are changing our organization. So from January 1st, I will be heading our software development, embedded software in our products. And we have been part of Software Center for I don't know how many years. So that's me. And it's my first reporting session I'm joining. So I'm new in this area.
Good. And this brings me to something. Please share if you have been engaged before or if this is the first time. That is quite interesting for me as well. Thank you, Ann-Katrin.
And the next one is Ruben Alexanderson.
Yes, so I'm Ruben and I'm from Volvo Cars. Well, in Volvo Cars, I work within a group called Product Engineering that is basically working with how we develop our cars overall. So my main interest in being here is that I'm part of the task force and I try to keep an overview of everything that's going on in terms of Software Center. And this is the area that I felt I have the least knowledge about. So that's why I'm here today. Yeah.
And the next one is Allan Agerholm.
Yes, Allan Agerholm from DIFE, together with Martin, that you will hear about shortly because Martin is also here. Martin and myself are heading our software and hardware development. For most of the products we do in Dive. We are, I guess, the latest member to the software center, and as such, we're listening in and trying to learn and actually on a path finding out what can we learn and gain from these software center activities that are ongoing.
Thank you. And the next one is Andreas Beck.
Yes, hello, Andreas Beck. I'm here from Vaasa in Finland and working for Wärtsilä as a safe product owner. And I was partially in the spring in a report session, but I would say this is my initial watchings.
Welcome.
And Fredrik Hugosson.
Yes, hello. I'm from Axis Communications in Lund, working as a solution architect close to our product management. I've been in Software Center for quite a while now and working with Helena in this product management track also. Really happy to see the more people joining and how the agile or business agility 2.0 is shaping up. It's really nice.
Yeah. Hiljemark Mari.
Yes, so I'm Marie Hiljemark and I'm from AB Volvo Group Trucks Technology. And I'm new in this software center context. I'm responsible for a department that is owning the software platforms and our hardware computational platforms in all our trucks.
Yeah. Jesper Meulengracht.
Yes, hi, I am a guest here because the company I work for now is not a member of this center, but I'm just listening in, trying not to say too much. I'm working for right now Niras, which is a Danish company. I live in Copenhagen, Danish company, which is consulting around a lot of businesses. And I have been here with the software center since I think 2013, when I worked for Grundfos, and Helena and Jan Bosch were visiting that company many times. I have then, for the last 2.5 years, tried in vain to convince my other employer or later employer, which was De Laval in Stockholm, to join this fantastic center. But all the time I've been here, but they were never really got hooked to it. And I left the company in good faith this summer because my tenure ended. It's really, really great stuff that's happening in this center here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lars Stålheim.
Yes, hi. I'm working at Ericsson Packet Core at Lindholmen, Göteborg, and I've been listening and participating in some of the reporting sessions that the Software Center have had. So I've heard you, was it 1 year ago, Helena, as well as short, briefly. I didn't catch all the session you had a couple of weeks ago in some activity, and I'm working as quality manager, it's called, supporting the continuous delivery and very much, you could say, focusing on how do we actually secure that we have a system that are guaranteeing that we have a good quality. And when going from step-by-step delivery products, it's very much changing in focus. We have to not put KPIs on the products, but KPI on the process. And I can see that our business is changing with that, but other businesses are working in the not old-fashioned, but there are different businesses in different areas. So I thought the previous presentation was rather interesting in that sense. We have a shift in a lot of different businesses going to a more service-oriented way of working, where you actually need to, your deliveries are your deployments, so to say. So that's a good discussion. And I like to see more of this hooks in, or rather, I think I'm rather familiar, but I get more details of it. That's my focus of today.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Then we have Martin Mallen.
Yeah, hello. Martin from DIVE. We've been part of the software center only this year, so this is, I think this is my second reporting workshop. I'm responsible for our platform development, meaning that I'm responsible for the hardware development and the low-level software, the shared software part in our products. Yeah.
Mats Lindén.
Yes, hi, Mats Lindén. I'm from Ericsson and I'm working with most aspects on continuous delivery, continuous deployment.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And I think that was the last one. I can see one in the lobby, Helena.
Oh, then we need to do this. Anna Sandberg, of course, we want Anna in. Anna, welcome.
Thank you.
You get to introduce yourself right when you enter.
Okay, thank you. Anna Sandberg, Volvo Cars, and looking forward to be here again.
Most welcome.
Thank you.
Then, tack Ann-Katrin, thank you for your help. Then I will quickly run you through what has happened in this community this sprint. And that has been quite, I think, an amazing sprint. I think most of you are familiar with this slide in the sense that we run not only the research projects in Software Center, but on top of that, we have also a few dedicated communities. So we have a systems engineering community running at the same time. Actually not in this picture, but we have an AI engineering community. We have the software engineering, and then we have the product management. We have also a few workshops on topics like continuous deployment. We have also digitalization workshops for senior leaders twice a year typically. So there are communities as well as research projects, and this is then the product management community. The background was that we really wanted to create a forum for product managers and similar roles to help you drive the topics of your key interest. We started out very closely to data-driven decision-making and how digital technologies can help you achieve things in ways you basically couldn't do before. Also helping you in how to prioritize. I mean, Francis touched upon the whole new opportunity that comes with taking more data-driven decisions, etc., in an organization. So that was the quick background. And the goal or the intention is, of course, for people in similar roles in companies with, I think, similar challenges to meet, to share best practices, to share challenges, to get a forum where we can discuss those topics that keep you awake at night. And make progress on those topics. So to really drive digitalization from a product management community perspective. So that's, I would say, the intention with this group. This fall has been really good in the sense that we have had an engagement that we haven't even been close to before. So we have had 3 workshops, one in September. That was for the automotive company. So we started out, and this was actually a request from one of the automotive companies who wanted to explore the relationship between the suppliers and the OEMs in terms of business models. So we had all 5 in there, AB Volvo, Volvo Cars, SEFT, Scania, and Bosch. So 13 people in total discussing basically service revenue and how to manage the old and the new business models at the same time. In October, we had a cross-company workshop for all of the companies. 10 companies were there, 26 participants, and the topics was business agility. And then in November, we had another workshop open for everyone. We had 11 companies joining, and we had 25 people, and that was on data pricing. So how do we make use of internal as well as external data? How do we share? How do we sell? Really, really happy with the engagement this sprint. What we look into now, and I will use the similar framework as Jan used this morning, but basically to the left you see the dimensions that we associate with digital transformation. So digital transformation involves the way in which you can update your products, the way in which you can sell, so the business model dimension, the way in which you exploit and make use and also even sell your data, and of course then the way you make use of AI, machine learning technologies, etc. So we have been working our ways in two of these dimensions, I would say, primarily the business model and the data exploitation dimension this fall. So just to give you a feel, the first workshop on digital business models, we focused on this. So how do you basically go from a product-oriented sale towards developing complementary services around your product, and how can you enhance sales on service revenue? And even at the very end there, maybe there is an opportunity to create a multi-sided market where you basically use the data you collect from your existing customer base and you can monetize it with a new customer base. I will skip this one and move into this. These were the main topics, and again, this was for the automotive companies. So a few topics of discussion. What we noticed in these discussions was that data pricing was incredibly interesting for these companies. So then we decided to organize a workshop dedicated on data pricing, but not only for the automotive companies, but also for everyone in Software Center. So we then focused on this dimension only. So how do you exploit data going from the typical quality assurance in diagnostics data to track product performance, feature usage, etc., into a situation where data becomes more of an asset, where you have aggregated data, you provide insights, and you might even have a monetization opportunity with a secondary customer base. Here we also had companies presenting, so everyone participating also gave their insights on this. Key focus was how is historical as well as current real-time data used within the company? How is it used with others to generate benefits? And how could it maybe even be sold to other parties? So that was the main topics. And here you see the long list of companies. So really a privilege to have everyone, almost everyone there. And then the final one was on business agility. And this seems to be the topic of interest for most people because this raised quite an interest, not only as a workshop, but also as a brown bag seminar the other week. In this workshop, we outlined how we see business agility, the existing agility, and what we need to move towards. And I won't go into details here, I will talk about it later. But also here we had a number of companies presenting how they view the adoption and the success of agile practices as an enabler for business agility. So I will go out of sharing mode for this one. Before I do anything else, I hope I stopped sharing screen. Did I?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I do anything else, any reflections from your end or any comments on the community activities this sprint? Anything before I move on? I take silence as if we are ready to move on. So what I wanted now to spend some time on is a presentation where I have put together 3 key trends. This was also partly presented for the Software Center Steering Committee earlier this fall. within this theme and within the product management community, what is it that we see happen, and what are the topics where we feel we need to focus our efforts? So I will share it with you in a sort of a light version, because the talk in itself is quite long. So you will, I will have to skip slides, and my apologies, but you will also get the slides, because what I am interested in is that when I am done with the light version presentation, we can have your take on things to also open up for a bit of discussion. Then let's see if I manage this. And now hopefully you see a slide saying 3 key trends. These are the 3 key trends that we see happening right as we speak. So digitalization and digital transformation is number 1. This one requires strategic ecosystem positioning and repositioning. So in a digital transformation, there will be new opportunities, and not only opportunities, you will have to carefully think about your positioning and repositioning as a company. And to be able to do this, that's when what we term Business Agility 2.0 comes into play. And I will talk a little bit about each of these 3 trends. So the first one, I think you are all familiar with the definition of digitalization. The reason I show it is because it has a lot to do with new value producing opportunities. So ways in which we can monetize our products that we were simply not able to do before. So that's important to remember. The evolution we see of new technologies is continuous. So we, and when I say we, I mean the software center companies, going from more of the traditional, the mechanics, the electronics, and over time, continuously having new technologies added, software, data, and artificial intelligence. Sorry, I will try to see if I can let people in at the same time.
You don't need to do that. Anyone can do it, actually.
That is a great thing to hear. So thanks for helping me out. Then I will continue. Thank you for informing me. Great. Technology evolution. If we then look at this from a business perspective, what we see happening is that what we used to have as our traditional technologies and where we monetized previously, of course also still, but these are increasingly becoming commodity. Whereas the new technologies that are added, like software, like data, like AI, they are over time becoming more and more important from a differentiating and innovation perspective. So this does not mean that mechanics and electronics is not important, but they are complemented with new technologies that also offer new opportunities. This comes with a number of implications. So of course, you monetize your different technologies in different ways. The traditional technologies typically are sold using transactional business models, while the more digital you go, the more subscription-based models you see. The intention and the desired state is where you can have more of a continuous model for all of these technologies. I won't go into details, but that is the desired state. Typically for each technology, there is a new partner entering the ecosystem or a new competitor. So this requires what I said in terms of positioning and repositioning. Who do I partner with? Who do I compete with? And how do I think about these new entrants in my ecosystem? And then, of course, we have the ways of working. So for each new technology, we have new ways of working appearing in our organizations. I know that many of you have good experience and excellent DevOps organizations. And then more recently, We have additions to this in terms of the data ops and even now recently the ML ops. So the continuous practices that we knew from software and the agile practices that lay the basis for the DevOps culture is now transitioning into involving also the data and the ML technologies. So this is quite an interesting shift, I feel. And of course, then, if you look at your traditional technologies, you would want them to also be included in this ops, not that you release them in the same frequency, but you want the overall system to improve over time. This will be further elaborated upon in Project 9 this afternoon. So again, this one with the 4 dimensions lay the basis for us, how we think about digital transformation. I will not use every single example, but what I want to emphasize is that most of the software center companies is in a stage where complementary services around products is very important and critical, and actually also very much what the companies develop and sell nowadays. So the next steps in the model where you start monetizing on your customer KPIs. So for a truck company, for example, you could monetize on the number of successful deliveries without delay. That would be one example. But this stage and then the final stage where you collect data from your existing customers and sell to someone else, those 2 final stages, I would say we're not there yet. These are what all of you explore. These are things that you wish to see realized, and maybe you've started, but we're not there yet. When it comes to how things are shifting, an example from the car automotive domain, very often the core values of a product, for a car it would be, for example, safety, status, efficiency, transportation, of course. The core values typically stay the same, but what we look to do is to sell them, is to have customers pay for them using different models. So we want a continuous revenue stream, but we provide the similar core values. With the software center companies, we have explored this in terms of how to generate service revenue. And there are many options, and we see many of you using several of these. So for example, the on-demand model has come into play when it comes to, for example, tools, equipment within automotive, typically wheels, those things you need, but you maybe not want to own. So there are several of these new service models that the companies in the software center are actively exploring. And if you then look at the data, we also see the software center companies using this increasingly in new ways. These are some of the typical patterns. These are the patterns that we discussed with the automotive companies, but I actually think they apply to companies also outside of the automotive domain. So you have someone, a supplier in this case, but there's someone asking for data. You start maybe share some of your data you collect, and then they ask for more. So then there is this whole need to think about how do we scale, and what if they share it with others, etc., etc. But typically all of the companies we meet with, they say, you know, we have this one supplier asking, and then they just want more. You use it, of course, as a step, the first step to provide complementary services to customers. And then in the end, what you would wish is to be able to use it also outside of your existing customer base. And what everyone seems to be interested in right now is to how can I start monetize my current data with someone else, as well as how can I start monetize based on how well I fulfill my customers' KPIs. Those seems to be on top of everyone's mind. And what is important to remember is that you want to be the ones providing not only the raw data, but rather the aggregated, the insights, the discovery, the trends, etc. There is where companies try to, this is where you basically build services on top of the raw data in itself, and that's the desired state. I mentioned the multi-sided market and what it is all about, and again, this is not what we see happening today within the software center companies, that you collect data from one and sell it with someone else. But if you just look at like a car or a truck, to the left you see some of the types of data that is today collected, and you can only imagine that these types of data could be interesting for someone else, new parties. So road conditioning data, for example, and things like that could be monetized with non-existing customers. A few words on the second trend, which has all to do with ecosystem positioning and repositioning. And many of you are familiar with this picture. Basically, what it says is that as a company, you operate in a number of different ecosystems. You have commodity functionality. The commodity ecosystem is where you typically look to share cost, share development, share maintenance. So you open up, you collaborate with others. When it comes to those things that make you different, the differentiating functionality, you keep it in-house. And then again, when it goes to innovation, you typically open up, you seek to share innovation efforts and costs with others. So depending on what type of functionality it is that we are talking about, the companies work differently. So you use different strategies and you engage with different partners. Many companies experience a situation where 70 to 90% is spent on commodity functionality, which is not a good place to be if you consider the risk of being disrupted. So you want to have enough resources spent on innovation or differentiating functionality to avoid being disrupted. And I think we all know what disruption means, so I will go quickly from this slide to the next. I showed this model, I think last time or maybe 2 times ago in a reporting workshop. It looks a bit funky, but what it explains is that as an incumbent, as a company, you serve a specific customer need. So if we start at the letter A, there is some customer expressing a need, and you try as hard as you can to meet that need. Over time, however, and these are the red little arrows, you move towards B. So over time, you spend more and more and more effort into optimizing the product capability, and you run the risk of losing out on the initial customer need. And what typically happens, and this is illustrated in C, during the time you work on the product capability, there is a new technology or something else entering the market. And the customer need, and this is D, might transform into a novel need. And if you are then too focused on the product, too far away from the customer, it is the perfect window of opportunity for a new entrant to disrupt the ecosystem. And this is important to keep in mind. As I said, having new technologies introduced, having new partners enter the ecosystem puts a number of challenges on an incumbent company. So for example, the coexistence, so the new ways of working and the new models, while at the same time, of course, maintaining the existing models and ways of working. And then the decision from an ecosystem point of view, who do I actually partner with? Who do I engage with? And there are a number of strategies for how to do this. We have outlined a few, and I will share the slides with you. But everything from creating the vertical solution to keep someone out, to open up and really try to share in a collaborative fashion those things that are less important to you. And then, of course, as a new entrant, there is a number of strategies that these use as well. they try to offer the low cost and the no frill solutions, looking somewhat similar, but without the golden plated feature, etc. So there is this whole situation where both the entrants as well as the incumbents in a digital transformation process with new technologies being introduced, you need to really carefully think about the ecosystem positioning and how to reposition yourself. And then as the final trend, to be able to even think in terms of positioning and repositioning, you want a business where you can actually react and respond to whatever it is that you want to achieve or that comes from external pressure. I will talk more about this as well in the afternoon session in Project 5. But if we look quickly at the history, we have had agile in software development for a very long time. Companies are really skilled in the DevOps setups, I would say, or at least familiar with them. There are attempts to scale these ways of working, the continuous, to scale it. We have SAFe, we have LESS, we have Scrum of Scrums, we have the Spotify model, all kinds of attempts to scale agile practices, still primarily at a software level. So these frameworks are primarily targeting how to scale from a few agile teams to many agile teams. The next step, and we do see a few attempts also here, that's where agile ways of working scale to a system level. Not too long ago, I didn't put the link in here, but you can have it if you would like, there was a chip upgrade from Tesla. What they basically are looking is to achieve not only continuous improvement of software functionality, but also at least frequent improvement of the electronics parts of the system. So there are attempts to scale the continuous ways of working to a system level. What we do not really see good examples of is the whole notion of business agility. I mean, a company is so much more than a product, so much more than product R&D, and there are many challenges with what we term business agility 1.0. It stays within software, and it was actually targeted towards software. So we really need additional support to be able to even talk about business agility 2.0. And when we say business agility 2.0, this is what we mean. An organization where you identify the feedback loops at each level and where everyone, so every role and function, evaluates itself towards the outcomes it is supposed to deliver. Here again, we go into more of the outcome data-driven approaches, the experimentation approaches, where you continuously monitor how you are improving, how you are adjusting, and how you are optimizing. And then this is achieved when you have feedback loops at all levels, shortened. Doesn't mean that they are the same, but they are shortened. You have identified the level of agility for each of the involved technologies, because these are all different and they will always be different and they should and need to be different, but they all have their own agile cycle, but you need to figure out what that cycle looks like. It has to do with, so business agility 2.0 is related to the business model. So you complement or even replace the transactional with the continuous. And then in the end, what you try to achieve is a situation where those feedback loops, those cycles that are slow, do not slow down those that can actually go fast. So you continuously try to achieve a situation where the infrastructure for the slower cycle is at least optimized to the extent you can to accelerate them and to in the end make them shorter. So this you saw in the beginning, these are what we term as digitalization. You could say that this is Business Agility 1.0, all about software, and then this is Business Agility 2.0. It involves end-to-end and the entire business. I have a few slides on the trends and what we see happening. I think I will not really go into detail here, but basically what we see is a much more strategic use of data, complementary services, new business models in relation to digital transformation. When it comes to more of the ecosystem view, we see an increasing need to get closer to customers and to really let go of commodity in the sense that you don't lock your resources in commodity. And then the third thing that I just mentioned, from Business Agility 1.0 to 2.0 means a shift from software and feature to business and organization agility, basically, where it is all about the business value creation rather than the frequency of releasing software. I know that this was quick. You will get the slides, but what I was hoping to do was to also open up for a few reflections, comments, or just, discussions around these topics, since these are, I think, the main topics that we have spent time on in this community during this sprint.